Okay, so before watching this video, you guys need to go to the link in Edmodo and watch the Ray Bradbury interview. It's about 10 minutes long. You need to watch that and then answer the first two questions that you need to submit in your Edmodo response. Then you'll be ready for this article. Fahrenheit 451, 50 years later, still sharply divides readers over Ray Bradbury. So first, please number your paragraphs. Everything is numbered. You should have 10 total, including where it says the italicized part that says note. I went ahead and gave that a number as well. So please pause the video and number your paragraphs. The highlighted portions of the article are going to be the excerpts that are in the questions on Edmodo that you'll need to respond to. So in paragraph 3, please go ahead and highlight the book presents a future that would be horrific for any reader, a future in which books cannot be read. And then you'll go down to paragraph 8. There's nothing to gain by willfully ignoring an avenue for gaining knowledge based on unfounded bias in paragraph 8. In paragraph 9, it was realization that stories could save readers that made me begin, and it goes to the next page, to feel like I could be a writer. And then highlight the line in paragraph 10. So when you've highlighted those 4 sections, you'll be ready to read the article. We're going to do notations together. The cover of Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451, you can cross all of that out because that was from the image that used to be there. Ray Douglas Bradbury, lover of the printed page, magician, surrealist, prolific writer of fantasy, horror, science fiction, and mystery, turned 91 this week. And critics and readers are still sharply divided over the man. So here we notice that they have syntax. The syntax would be their listing that you could add here. And they've used hyperbole to call him a magician, would probably be hyperbole. So we ask ourselves as a reader, and if they're using these words to describe him, why are they using such hyperboles to describe this man? What is it that he's done, and what makes him important? American novelist and critic Christopher Isherwood once wrote in a review of Bradbury's work that the sheer lift and power of a truly original imagination exhilarates. His is a very great and unusual talent. That review stood in sharp contrast to the science fiction author and critic Damon Knight's assessment that Bradbury's imagination is mediocre. He borrows nearly all his backgrounds and props and distorts them badly. So here we've got a metaphor talking about backgrounds and props used by the critic, and then between these two we ask ourselves as a reader, why do people disagree so much on his work? Why is it that his work creates such emotional contrast? When readers judge Bradbury, they think of Fahrenheit 451, first out of his more than 500 published works, because Fahrenheit 451 is a dystopian masterpiece and because it is a novel that was close to Bradbury's heart. When we talk about dystopian is diction. It means if you have a utopia, it means everything's exactly the way you want it. But if you have a dystopia, it means everything is not the way you want it. It means the opposite, the negative side of that. The book presents a future that would be horrific for any reader, a future in which books cannot be read. The novel's title refers to the supposed temperature at which book paper combusts. And then we know from the interview that, do we know how true this is based on the interview with Ray Bradbury? So where I'm putting these question marks, I want you to go back and maybe write in your own notes. So why would people be so contrasted here? Is this true, and what do we know from the video context? Paragraph 4. The book also presents a future Bradbury who said he was raised in libraries and has been called a Luddite for his dismissal of technologies, including the internet, most fears. All right, so this word right here is another new word. It means someone who fears technology, someone who fears that technology is taking over. They just have fears about that. So maybe to answer the question here in your notations, what would cause someone to fear the future? Paragraph 5. Note, I once tried to wrangle Bradbury into an online chat with Washington Post readers. His publicist told me that was the last thing Bradbury would want to do. So what does this tell us about Bradbury? What do we learn about him? 50 years later, Fahrenheit 451 looks very different than when it was first published in a shorter form as The Fireman, and time has only made readers more sharply divided over the book and the man. Okay, so we had The Fireman and we have Fahrenheit 451, so then we ask ourselves, well, why did he change it? Why did he change the title? Do we know the answer to that from the video? Please put your guess down in your notes. So wherever there are question marks, you should be answering the questions that we're posing as we read. Writer Steve West on the science fiction website Giant Freaking Robot wrote this of Fahrenheit 451 this week. What I've never understood is the way in which so many people claim to love the anti-censorship message of the story, but fail to notice it's we, TV watchers, who are the villains. And so here we have a metaphor saying people who watch TV are villains. What makes us villains? What makes us bad because we watch TV? Society, by turning from the printed word towards television, brought about the dystopian world of a book-burning fireman. The idea that television, or the internet for that matter, will someday turn mankind into oblivious automatons is short-sighted. There's nothing to gain by willfully ignoring an avenue for gaining knowledge based on unfounded bias. Alright, so here we have another new word, automatons, which means basically we're just on automatic function. We don't think about what we do, we're not thinking into anything, we're just doing what we do and moving forward. So we know that censorship is one of the messages, or anti-censorship is something that could be brought into the themes, but also the idea that TV, technology, internet, those things would be also ideas of what's changing society. So society is kind of our focus. His stories embraced a different reality, and they insulated me from the despair of a family that was breaking apart. It was a realization that stories could save readers that made me begin, and turning the page, thinking about being a writer myself. I was able to see through my own heartbreak into the future, and I decided to write myself there. But there is one line from Fahrenheit 451 all readers agree on, a line that readers have been sharing hundreds of times this week, sure that it remains true no matter what you think of Bradbury's work. You don't have to burn books to destroy a culture. Just get people to stop reading them. So that was a fairly quick read of Article 1. Article 1 is the only one that is due in class tomorrow, or on block day rather. If you could go ahead and put your name here, and then your hour here. Make sure that's done so you can tear this off and turn it in. Wherever there are question marks as we marked, that would be paragraph 1, paragraph 4, paragraph 6. You will need to answer those questions in your notes. You should have marked the metaphors, hyperboles, and some of those new words, diction choices such as dystopian and Luddite, and then go ahead and now begin to answer the questions for your final response online. There are 4 more questions that come back to this article. They might be difficult to answer. I want you to do your best to come up with an answer. I don't know, or I don't think so. Those are not appropriate answers. You need to give me an opinion and give me support. I will see you in class on block day.